The night began with laughter that sounded too perfect to be real. Ethan forced a smile as his family waved menus like flags of victory, ordering the most expensive dishes without a glance at the prices. "We're celebrating you, our sponsor," Linda declared, raising her glass while Mark called for another bottle of imported wine. The word sponsor burned in Ethan's ears, a joke that wasn't funny anymore. As lobster tails, steaks, and desserts piled up, the waiter's polite smile turned sharper with every tally. Sarah filmed everything for her followers, flashing filters over plates worth more than Ethan's week of work. Noah kept glancing at Ethan, silently asking if this was okay. Ethan nodded, but inside, the unease swelled. When the bill finally came, a crisp paper marked 1,000. The laughter froze midair. Silence, forks dropped. Ethan's heart pounded like a drum beneath the chandelier's glare. Ethan forced a calm tone, saying, "It's fine, I've got it," though his throat felt tight. Linda smiled proudly, thinking it was generosity. Mark chuckled, calling him a real man. But as the waiter took his card away, Ethan's chest burned with the weight of every unspoken word. The rent due, the loans waiting, the promotion that wasn't as big as they thought. Sarah joked about ordering dessert, but the words fell flat. The laughter didn't come back this time. When they stepped outside, the night air was colder than before. The neon lights of the city flickered over their faces as Mark lit a cigarette. Sarah checked her followers and Linda wrapped her shawl, still glowing from the evening. "You made us proud tonight," she said softly. Ethan smiled again, but it was the kind that hides cracks. The reflection in the restaurant window showed his family behind him, laughing, free, while his own reflection stood still, fading into the dark. Back in his car, the receipt sat on the passenger seat like a ghost. Ethan stared at the 1,000 total, remembering every moment I'd called him their sponsor. He laughed quietly, a sound more like disbelief than humor. The headlights carved through the darkness, catching his reflection in the rearview mirror. A man both proud and ashamed, generous yet used. The word family echoed in his head, its meaning heavier than ever. As he drove away, Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. "Thanks, sponsor." His grip on the wheel tightened, eyes glistening in the mirror. The city lights blurred into streaks, reflecting the storm he refused to show. In the distance, laughter still echoed from the restaurant, but this time, it wasn't music. It was memory. The night closed behind him like a curtain, leaving only the hum of the engine and the quiet promise that this would never happen again. The next morning, sunlight spilled through Ethan's blinds, cruel in its brightness. His phone buzzed with a family group chat filled with pictures from last night. Sarah's videos, Linda's captions, Mark's jokes. "Proud of our sponsor," read one message. Ethan's jaw clenched. The word that once made him laugh now felt like a wound. Bills lay open on his desk. Rent, insurance, credit card. Each one whispering the cost of his silence. When Noah called quietly, apologizing for everyone else, Ethan finally said, "Don't be sorry. Just don't let it happen again." His voice cracked on the last word, the first sign of something breaking beneath the calm. Linda sat in the kitchen later that day, showing off pictures from dinner to her friends on a video call. "My son treated us to the best night." She beamed. Behind her, Mark laughed at the memory, oblivious to the echo of Ethan's sacrifice. Yet when the call ended, Linda's eyes lingered on the empty table, remembering how quiet Ethan had been. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then put it down. Pride won over guilt, as it always had. That evening, Sarah uploaded her family dinner vlog, overlaying cheerful music on clips of lobster and laughter. Comments poured in. Goals. Rich family vibes. Each one twisting the knife a little deeper for Ethan as he watched in silence. When he texted her, "You shouldn't post that," she replied. Relax. It's just content. He stared at her words, realizing that for her, their dinner wasn't a memory, it was currency. Ethan met Noah at a quiet cafe that night. The younger brother fidgeted with his coffee cup, eyes low. They don't get it, Noah said softly. You always pay because you want them to love you. Ethan looked away, struck by the blunt truth. Maybe, he murmured. But love shouldn't come with a receipt. They sat in silence as rain began to patter against the window. Two brothers caught between loyalty and awakening. Late that night, Ethan stood by his apartment window. City lights flickering below. The word sponsor replayed in his mind, echoing like a curse. He finally typed a message into the family chat. Next time, everyone pays their own share. Then he put the phone down and exhaled, feeling both lighter and lonelier than I'd ever felt. Outside, a taxi horn wailed, the city's indifferent applause to a quiet rebellion. 2 weeks later, the family group chat buzzed again. Dinner this Sunday? Our sponsor's treat? Sarah had added the laughing emoji, but Ethan didn't laugh this time. He arrived late. The restaurant smaller now, more modest. His choice. When they saw him, Linda's smile faltered. Something in his eyes told her this wasn't another celebration. Let's order something simple tonight, Ethan said calmly, taking the menu but never looking down at it. The silence that followed was thicker than the air, and for the first time, no one joked. Mark broke the silence first, laughing awkwardly. Come on, it's just dinner, son. But Ethan's voice, calm yet sharp, cut through the noise. Last time it was more than dinner. It was a bill I couldn't afford. Sarah rolled her eyes, muttering that it was just money. Linda's lips tightened, torn between pride and guilt. Noah stared into his glass, wishing he could disappear. The waiter hovered nearby, sensing the weight of words unspoken. Linda finally spoke, her voice trembling. You think we don't appreciate you? Ethan met her gaze. I think you forgot what appreciation looks like. For a moment, the air seemed to stop moving. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, the glow from her phone fading as she set it face down. Mark leaned back, realizing his joke had gone too far. Noah's eyes darted between them, silently pleading for peace. The table that once felt like family now felt like a battlefield. Sarah broke the silence with a shaky laugh. Okay, we messed up. We just thought you liked being the successful one. Ethan leaned forward. Success isn't about who pays the bill. His voice was steady, but his eyes glistened with years of swallowed frustration. Linda reached out, her hand trembling. You're right, she said softly. We forgot to thank you. Not for the dinner, for everything. The apology wasn't perfect, but it was real. Later that night, they all left together, the cold air brushing against a fragile piece. Mark wrapped his arm around Linda. Sarah walked quietly beside Ethan for the first time without her phone. Next dinner, she said. I'll pay. Ethan smiled. Not out of victory, but relief. As they reached their cars, he looked up at the city lights, realizing something simple yet powerful. Family doesn't need sponsors. It needs honesty. Or true a. And days passed, and the silence between messages became a strange kind of peace. Ethan buried himself in work, but a lingering ache followed him, the ache of truth finally spoken. One afternoon, a call from Linda appeared on his screen. Her voice was gentler than usual. We're cooking dinner at home this Sunday. Just us. No fancy menus. Ethan hesitated, then smiled faintly. The idea of home, the real kind, felt overdue. I'll bring dessert, he said, and for once, it wasn't about money. Sunday came with the smell of garlic and laughter drifting from the kitchen. Linda hummed while chopping vegetables. Mark struggled to light the grill. Sarah set the table, actually putting her phone away. Noah arranged candles awkwardly but earnestly. When Ethan walked in, no one said, "Sponsor." Instead, Linda said, "We missed you." And the words landed softer than any apology. The clinking of dishes, the smell of food. It all felt real again. At the table, conversation flowed easier. Mark made jokes that actually earned laughter this time. Sarah showed Ethan a new video idea, not about food, but about gratitude. "Maybe it's time I post something real," she said with a half smile. Noah looked proud, leaning back with quiet relief. Ethan looked around and saw the family not as a burden, but as people trying, imperfectly, awkwardly, sincerely. Later that evening, Linda stepped out onto the balcony where Ethan stood watching the city glow. "You've grown into a good man," she said quietly. "I just wish we hadn't made you prove it with your wallet." Ethan's eyes softened. "You didn't," he replied. "I just thought I had to." They stood side by side, silent, the cities hung beneath them. Two people realizing love doesn't always sound like words. When the night ended, Ethan left the house carrying a box of leftovers. Not a bill, not a burden. Sarah hugged him for the first time in months. Mark clapped his shoulder, saying, "Next one's on me." As Ethan drove home, the city lights no longer blurred with resentment. They shimmered like a new beginning. Proof that sometimes confrontation is the first act of love. Weeks later, Ethan's life had found rhythm again. He no longer checked his bank app with dread. His evenings were quieter, his mind lighter. One evening, he sat alone at a small cafe, the same one where he'd spoken with Noah. This time, he was reading instead of worrying. His phone buzzed. A photo from Sarah, their family around the dinner table, captioned, "We all pitched in tonight." Ethan smiled, the kind that carried peace instead of pain. He realized healing isn't loud. It's in the quiet moments no one records. Linda began hosting family dinners every Sunday, potluck style. Everyone brought something small, something made by hand. Mark's grilled chicken, Sarah's desserts, Noah's awkwardly burnt garlic bread, and Ethan's calm presence tied it all together. No fancy chandeliers, no bills to dread. Just warmth, conversation, and the unspoken apology of togetherness. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel like a sponsor. He felt like a son again. One evening, after everyone had left, Ethan stayed behind helping. Linda cleaned the table. "Do you remember the first dinner?" she asked with a small, regretful smile. "I do," he said, "but this one, I'll remember better." They laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carries healing in its echo. In that moment, Ethan realized forgiveness wasn't a gift to others. It was the freedom he'd been waiting to give himself. Later, driving home through the quiet streets, Ethan replayed the memory of that first $1,000 bill. It no longer hurt, it taught. He thought about how love sometimes wears the wrong face before it learns the right one. As the streetlights passed, his reflection in the window looked different now. Steadier, freer, human. A few weeks later, Ethan surprised his family, not with a dinner, but with a framed photo. It showed all of them at the table from their last gathering, smiling, ordinary, real. "No filters," Sarah said with a laugh. "No bills," Mark added. Linda hugged Ethan tightly, whispering, "You gave us back what money can't buy." And as Ethan looked around, the moment felt whole. The kind of ending that doesn't fade, only settles quietly into the heart. Ethan returned to work with a different kind of confidence. Quiet, grounded, steady. When his co-workers joked about his big spender reputation, he smiled but didn't play along this time. "I'm done paying for approval," he said simply, surprising even himself. Later, his manager asked him to lead a new project, saying he admired Ethan's calm under pressure. For once, Ethan didn't question if he deserved it. He just nodded and accepted, knowing that strength doesn't need to shout. That evening, Ethan met Noah for coffee again. Noah grinned, saying he'd gotten a part-time job. "I wanted to help out too," he said proudly. Ethan chuckled. Good. Just remember, help should come from choice, not guilt. They clinked coffee cups like a quiet toast, brothers no longer bound by silence but by understanding. The world outside the cafe window blurred with headlights, but inside, it felt still. Two lives finding balance. Sarah invited Ethan to her apartment one weekend. She had just uploaded a new video titled, "The Dinner That Changed My Family." Instead of glamour, it showed laughter, apologies, and truth. "I wanted people to see what real family looks like," she said shyly. Ethan watched the clip. The same people, same faces, but now framed with honesty. "It's perfect," he said, and meant it for Sarah. Validation finally came not from views, but from being seen. Linda and Mark began to change too. They started budgeting together, laughing at how clueless they'd been. One night, Mark texted Ethan a photo of a grocery bill with the caption, "Our turn to pay." Ethan laughed, heart swelling with quiet pride. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about growth. Even small gestures, like Linda packing leftovers for Noah or Sarah offering to drive Ethan home, meant everything now. Weeks later, Ethan hosted everyone for dinner at his apartment. The food was simple: pasta, salad, laughter. When Linda tried to leave money on the counter, Ethan shook his head. "Tonight, it's not about paying back," he said softly. "It's about being together." The night ended with music playing low, the city lights glowing through his window, and the unspoken feeling that sometimes the best repayment is simply showing up. Months later, Ethan found himself walking past the same upscale restaurant where it had all begun. The chandeliers still glittered, the laughter still echoed through the glass. But something inside him had shifted. He stood there, hands in pockets. No bitterness, just clarity. The place that once humiliated him had become a quiet landmark of who he used to be. Sometimes healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about walking past it and not stopping anymore. That night, Ethan sat at his desk writing in his notebook. Something he hadn't done in years. He wrote, "Generosity without boundaries becomes sacrifice without meaning." The words felt right. He closed the notebook, smiling to himself. The younger version of him would have chased approval. The man now understood that love must breathe, not beg. The quiet hum of the city outside sounded less like chaos, more like peace. One weekend, Ethan visited his parents. Linda greeted him with a warm hug. Mark joked about making coffee instead of buying it, and Sarah handed him a small envelope. Inside was a gift card, the exact amount of that first $1,000 bill. "We all chipped in," she said with a grin. "Consider it poetic justice." Ethan laughed, genuinely this time, eyes glistening with disbelief and gratitude. Forgiveness had come full circle. Not in words, but in action. Later, as the sun set behind the family home, Ethan sat with Noah on the porch steps. "Do you think people change?" Noah asked. Ethan watched the horizon glow. "They do," he said, "when they want to love better." The air smelled of rain and earth, the kind of scent that follows closure. The world around them felt still, not empty, but full of quiet lessons finally learned. Weeks later, Ethan returned to the cafe where his story had turned. He ordered his usual coffee, sat by the window, and watched strangers laugh and argue over bills, menus, and misunderstandings. The same dance of life he'd once stumbled through. He smiled quietly, sipping his drink. Life would always come with prices, he thought, but the most valuable lessons are the ones you pay for once, and never again. The city outside glowed, and for the first time, Ethan felt completely free.